Yes. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Veterans Minimum. I'm your host, Nick Deus. At The Lamb Shows, where you can find me. At Veterans Minimum, where you can find everything for the show. In studio, the guy whose voice you hear before mine sometimes on the podcast, my brother, Nick Zab. What up, baby?
My man, how are you, dude?
Man, absolute pleasure. We're about to start rocking and rolling. We've been hanging out for a couple hours watching some football. We're in the middle of the 4 o'clock window of the games. And, man, it's a pleasure, dude. You know, it is about a year since I last saw you.
Full year. Almost a full year on the dot, actually, because it was in November, for sure.
It was in November, and I think our conversation was spearheaded by our love for Daniel Jones and what we thought about Daniel Jones.
I mean, it wasn't. Was it a love for Daniel Jones, or more of like just the horizons of what we could see because we didn't have Geno Smith at the realm?
Yeah, and thoughts and prayers
Yeah.
for the future outlook.
Yep. That sounds about right. Honestly, I mean, like hindsight's a bitch when you think about it, but I mean, you can't do anything about it at this point. You kind of just have to sit there and pray for the best now.
Man, I gotta say, I fucking love your music. It's the theme song to the show. Many people have asked me, a lot of people. So I don't know if I've told you this, but like I'm affiliated with Blue Wire. Blue Wire is a podcast network.
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Shout out to them. But I've had a lot of people in Blue Wire. I think I sent you a screenshot.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
They're like, bro, this theme song is popping. Like, who is this?
It's not a lot either, but about 5 or 6. I can account for 5 or 6 follows on Instagram just from the show. Just from the show, straight up. I'll get a DM every now and then, probably like once every 3-4 months, and be like, "Yo, I heard your stuff on Veterans Minimum." I go, "Yeah, man, like that's what it's for." Like I appreciate it, and it's just funny too, like being able to get fans from different places. Before we start, though, I wanted to give you something, a little housewarming.
Oh, gifts.
Got you a bottle of JMO from my man. I remember you telling me that you're a big JMO guy.
Oh.
And I was hoping we can crack that open. I'm not even a big drinker like that, but I was hoping we can crack it open.
Wow, this is first of all, thank you.
No
number
problem,
one.
man. Of course.
Number 2, this is the first housewarming gift I've gotten.
Absolutely, man.
Shout out to Impy and Alan. You guys have been to the place multiple times. Not one gift, but you know what? We'll save that for a different time.
Also, shout out to Dylan for not coming to see you at work for about 1,100 days?
Yeah, we're like at 1,200 days now.
But that's your boy, though.
That's my guy.
First of all, that's my boy.
Yeah.
Shout out Dylan. I
Yeah,
fucking love that kid.
Can I give you a little inside info about that?
Yeah.
So he actually does work down the
He
block
definitely
from my
does,
crib from my job. But all his coworkers come, right? 'Cause to be fair, he starts work a little bit later. Like I'm only there for breakfast. But you were a wrestling fan. We were talking about wrestling. Yo,
yeah.
you remember back in the day, bro, when like Goldberg was first starting on Night Show?
Undefeated, man.
And he was undefeated.
Yeah.
But if you remember, it was like he's 43-0. And then
Yep.
the next Monday he was like 62-0.
Yep.
And you're like, how
Just
the fuck
exaggerated. Yep.
Yo, so that's what I've been doing with
Yep.
Dylan not coming. So I just add like 20, 30 days.
Well, what's
every
it called?
time.
Every time, I think last time we were talking, this came up on the last podcast. I'm almost positive because I shouted him out for the same thing too because he's the man.
He hasn't been there since.
But it's not even that. So that was about 360 days ago. And like in my head, I'm like, yeah, he hasn't been there for another 800 days. Like
Yeah,
that's just
man.
how it works. That's
It's
how
so
time
fun.
works.
It really be your own people sometimes.
I mean,
man.
it is what it is. I mean, you gotta just take one for the team at that point because I know he's getting breakfast. I know he's eating.
Yeah.
And it's just not with you. So
That's foul.
it is what it is. I mean, it is foul. Yo, crack that open though, man. You got a cup?
Yeah, all right. Why not? Let's let this shit run.
Yeah.
Yo, while you're at it though, tell the people a little bit about like that mixtape and the music thing.
Sure,
like,
man.
while you're
Yeah.
at it.
So I put out a mixtape last year. You actually used one of my songs, Five Borough Cookout, as your intro song. I'm working on music now. We talked about it earlier, where it's more of, it's not as much of a priority, but at the same time it is, and I'm trying to roll it out a little bit differently, where opposed to having a mixtape or having a project, I'm trying to just release it one by one with some visuals and, try and get some eyes on it, because it's hard when you're unknown and you kind of don't have anybody looking for you or checking for your music like that. If you have no visuals to it, it gets lost in the wind. So you kind of just sit there and you're like, all right, well, I feel like I just wasted a year of my life, but at the same time, it's not wasting because I got better. You know what I mean? I got a lot better. I showed you some music. I'm hoping to roll out some videos within the next couple months, and hopefully go into the summer with that. My man, cheers, bro.
Salute.
Thank you for
This is
the
the
invite.
first time that I'm ever drinking on my show.
Absolutely, dude. Pleasure to be part of it.
It's a slow building process,
Yeah, of
man.
course.
You know what I mean? Like it's very rare where it happens overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And also I like your approach that it's not something that's happening that it's not something that you're like looking for. You're
Yeah.
kind of just doing it because you like to do it.
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
think that's where things really start to blossom, bro.
Absolutely. I think also I got over the whole like I wanted to be famous from this. Like I don't want to. Like it's not for that. I think like this is so therapeutic for me to make music. It's important for me to actually I love the process. Like just the way you love the process of doing all this, I just love the actual process of making music.
Do you see my face right now?
Yeah.
Therapeutic.
Yeah.
Bro, this is my therapy.
It's it, man. It's so good, isn't it?
I love I get either friends or just anybody to either come into the studio
Yeah.
or to call into the show. Like, yeah, man, this is really therapy for me.
You ever think about this is going to be one of my questions I wanted to ask you. You ever think about getting voicemails on the show?
Way back in the day, we did something where people were sending us voice notes and we played it on here.
Yeah.
And then from there, we answered the question. So we do this thing from way back called the People's Podcast, where like every month I gather questions, mostly from the patrons.
Yeah.
But then I'll take like a handful from like Twitter and Instagram also. And we did one way back in the day where they sent us voice notes and it was cool.
Yeah.
But also a person sent the voice note and they didn't really sound that loud, or it was a lot of pauses in between to get their question out and whatnot. And the least amount of editing I could do, Nick, is a lot easier.
I hear
on my
you,
end.
buddy. I hear you. But yeah, therapeutic is the word because I think we spoke about it earlier too. It's more of like whether this is going out to 5 people or 5 million people, like you kind of have to look at it as the way of this is for you. And that's all my music is for. It's for me. I explain to even my friends when I make my music, I make music that I want to hear and I feel like that I'm not hearing. In the same way with the podcast thing, you're making content for yourself because you feel like you're not hearing it as much as you think you would like. Like you hear all these sports podcasts, you hear all these other pieces of content, whether it's from entertainers, celebrity, whatever it is, and what it's for. Sometimes it's a cash grab, sometimes it's for the ads, sometimes it's this or that. I just like shooting the shit, and that's what I want my music to be. Is I want my music to sound conversational almost. I kind of want people to look at it and listen to it and be like, oh, there's just a guy talking, and it just happens to be over a beat, happens to rhyme, happens to be rhythmic. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And like I said before, the fame thing is not my priority, man. I can't, it's not for me. I like attention, but I like attention from the people in my life. You know what I mean? I tell my friends all the time that, if it wasn't for music and for other future things that I want to do, I would get rid of social media completely. I have no Twitter. I would get rid of Instagram, but I just want attention from my friends and my family, man. Like that's all the people I love. Like that's what I want the attention from. So I want their approval, and my music it's approval for me. It's the fact that I can do it. That's kind of what I'm into it for. And that's also, if you go back to our last podcast a year ago, I'm not saying that it would be different, my take on it, but I was also in the beginning process of that. I was learning more about myself a year ago. Like a year changes you drastically. Look at you and look at this whole situation,
Yeah, man. Last year you came to my parents' house.
Yeah.
That feels mad good to say.
It's so nice, right?
Yeah, because we were talking about that word urgency before, and I feel like I have a sense of urgency now where, like, I got to get shit done. And I've always been a GSD guy, get shit done. Because from a young age, my pops would always just tell me, like, yo, nobody's going to give you shit, bro. Like, no one's going to give you anything. Don't expect anyone to give you anything. Have a close circle of people, whether they're friends or family or associates, that you can trust in the sense of, like, sharing ideas and bouncing things off one another. But even if someone knows someone, don't expect them to do anything for you or to put you on. Like,
absolutely.
I've sort of come up with this new kind of catchphrase, or I guess, a motto or slogan, whatever. But it's like be your own cosign.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone wants to get
Dude,
picked up
absolutely. I've said that before.
by
That's awesome
something,
that you say
and
that.
it's just like, yeah, yo, like I know the stuff is good, or else it wouldn't be growing every month. And also, it was a big get for me to get picked up by Blue Wire. Like that was really dope because at the time when you came on the show last year was when I was going through the turnover of the show.
There's a lot of transition. I
A
remember
lot of
talking
transition,
about it.
and I was, I'm not gonna lie to you, and it's not a secret. Like I was very worried about it in the beginning because it's just natural when you have change. Change sometimes isn't good for everybody.
Yeah.
And like other people liked it. Other people like it more. Other people miss the old stuff. So it all depends. It's all a feeling out process. But it's gotten to a point now where it's like we're sitting in a place completely different from where we were a year ago. Who knows where next year might be?
Both of us too. That's what I'm saying too. Is like
Right.
that's
And-
really where you're at.
And also, I really suggest people go back and listen to that podcast with you. I think the name of it was Hustle and Motivate.
Yep.
And
Rip
because
Nipsey.
you have he's up on the wall, bro.
Yes, he
Did you
is,
notice
sir.
that?
Yes, he is.
Everything you see in here,
It means something.
to me.
Yep.
So it's like it feels homey. It feels like an office space, but it's like
You know how I know it means something too is because I'm staring you dead in the face, and all I could see is Stone Cold. It's all I could see, man. Because right down the barrel, I'm just looking at you, and I just see Stone Cold
I
right
mean,
behind you, man.
bro. Listen, everyone, that's my goat.
That's you.
That's-
what do you mean?
that's-
That's just you.
Yeah, but that's the goat. Like there's many goats out there,
Listen,
and
a
there's
couple drop sets of biceps, bro. That might be you.
Yeah,
Shave the head,
yeah.
bick it if you need to.
dude. If I wanted to just like, if I didn't have such a big ass head, bro, I would love to be just bald, just fucking tossing middle fingers up. Bro, I'm a 7 3/4 fitted, and it's a tight squeeze.
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, that's
man.
tough.
That's a big noggin.
Yeah,
dude.
it's a big noggin. I was called Chrome Dome in high school when I played baseball.
Yo, but you know what it is too? You were also I don't think you were like heavy, but you were bigger, like weight wise. And like you don't realize too, because my head is in comparison to my body now because I've lost weight. My head is just like looks like it sits on top of my body, and it's like bigger than my body. And you kind of sit there and like I'll wear a hat and I'll be like, I'm like a 7.5 or a 7.25, and like I'll wear a snapback now, and it's like not too bad. But like there was a point where when I was heavy, dude, I was wearing like a 7 3/4, like maybe sometimes a 7. What's right underneath an 8? Was it a 7 to 7/8?
Yeah.
I remember I wore one of those and like I could fit in it a little bit. And I was like, bro, you got to change. I was like, something's got to happen. I go, you can't be walking around with a fishbowl on your head.
Dude, I mentioned that podcast because you have an incredible weight loss journey, really crazy one. I mean, fuck, you've been posting some of these before and after pictures of you, and it's fucking insane. I even reposted some of them. So if people listening to this
I
now,
always respect that too. I appreciate
which-
it.
I mean, bro, that's fucking awesome. So I don't want to spend too much time on it.
No, we don't have
because I want people to go back and listen to it. But can you just give us like a brief little?
Yeah, about 2 years ago. So actually 2 years ago in January 2019, I wound up, I was 460 pounds. I was going through just like, it was like one of those transitional phases in your life.
No,
where-
hold on.
Yeah.
Say the weight one more time, because
Only because I'll tell you how much I weigh now. 462 pounds.
well, that's why I'm also making you share that twice,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
know how you look now and how you did. Like
Yeah,
you should
absolutely.
definitely be wearing that like a badge of honor.
Absolutely. We were just talking earlier when I was asking you for gear, and you were like, "What are you now, an XL?" Bro, I was wearing at my highest, I was probably like a 5X, 6 extra large, I think. And now I'm a large in shirts, which is wild. It's just wild. Like it changes your entire life. It's cool. The look and the aesthetic is nice, but also like I have confidence in myself. I could rely on myself. So I was 462 pounds, and I wound up getting the gastric sleeve in January of 2019. And it was one of those things where it was a slow progress. It was something where you kind of have to reteach yourself everything. You have to give yourself the benefit of the doubt, thinking, listen, you're going to mess up, you're going to fail. And I did a couple times. And after I did, I was like, listen, you got to keep it moving, man. I was like, bro, you got to keep going, man, because now it was either sink or swim. You either die or you live. And it was no way of living if you're 460 pounds. Like whoever's out there, and if you know, overweight, obese, whatever it is, like it's not a way of life. Not because of like how you look either. It's more of, you can't depend on yourself, man. You just can't. You can't walk up and down the block without getting tired, without your ankles swelling up. You can't you can't do things that a normal person can do. Like, I would go out with my friends sometimes to eat, and I would have to go up to the hostess before everybody even got there, and I would say, listen, can we get a table, not a booth? Because you can't fit in a booth. You know what I mean? And that's a hard pill to swallow. Like, that's really hard. So the weight loss is cool, but it was also one of those things that I noticed where it doesn't change much, like, mentally. You have to shift mentally, and like the weight comes off because the brain gets stronger. And better than anybody, because I see how you are with your physical fitness now too. Like, you're really on top of your shit. You were never a big dude, but you knew that, you would get stagnant, you would get lazy, you would get, you would overeat. You're working on a truck, you're kind of eating whatever's there, whatever you can make for yourself. And sometimes it's not always the best choices, but then after a while you're like, shit, man, like, I'm sweating walking up steps. Like, dude, I'm not even 30. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I don't want to die. Like, my doctor told me, he was like, dude, listen, you won't live past 30. He goes, by 29, 20, I had this when I was 26. So he was like, by 29, 30 years old, he goes, if you got into a car accident, man, your sugars, your blood is like syrup because of how high your sugars are. He goes, if you got into a car accident, you would bleed out and die. And I was sitting there, I was like, who here? I was like, I'm 25, 26 years old. Who says that? And I was like, I had to really face that to myself. And it was one of those things where I kind of like don't look at it as a thing anymore. I look at it as progress, and I always know who that guy is. But I also like, I need to also move on. A lot of people dwell in that, and I can't, because I'm a different person. And, you lose a lot of friends, you lose family sometimes, because you start to realize that when you are heavy, like, or obese or whatever you are, you start to realize that people know that you have to depend on them, and you have to use them as a crutch. And then when you start to rely on yourself more, you realize, like, I don't need you. And not only do I not need you, but you're not doing anything for me, meaning you're not helping me in any way. You're not motivating me in any way. You rather stay still like I was. And that's the hard part. You kind of have to just make that decision, being like, listen, I gotta cut some dead fat, literally and figuratively, So, and here I am, I weigh 225 pounds now. So I lost 230 pounds altogether.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I had something a little similar where, it's weird, right? Like, life, I don't want to get too preachy, but it's just funny, like, how life works, right? You always hear that expression, because I got up to 245, and then I got the letter that I was accepted into Nassau County Police to go be a cop. And I had like 3 months to get ready for the physical. And the physical was 29 push-ups, 39 sit-ups, and like a 1.5 mile run in, I think it was like under 12 minutes. I just remember looking at it, I was like, there's no fucking way I can do that. Like, there's no way. It's just impossible. There's no way I can't do it.
I know.
So it's funny, again, how life works, because I was going to become a cop. I didn't. I went through hell to become a cop, and all the money that I lost with the lawyers and shit to fight my case. And it was like the darkest time of my life. But on the flip side, that helped me get into shape.
Yeah.
So it's the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me, because I don't know if I ever would have gone to shape.
But it's also not that's the thing too, is you have to realize that it's not the worst thing. It's not like a double-edged sword at that point. It's not like, oh, it's bittersweet. There's no bitterness. There was bitterness momentarily. There was like, you were upset that you didn't become a cop, or you couldn't go through the process that you wanted to. But you also got to realize, if you became a cop, regardless of what you think, I know what that life is like. One of my best friends is a cop. I know what that entails in terms of your mental stability. I know what it entails in terms of your time. You would not be able to do this.
Well, they also gave me an ultimatum.
Yeah.
They told me that you can't be on the internet the way you are.
Yeah. Because you're subject to a lot of target. Like,
exactly.
You're a target. You're a target.
So I was just like, it got to a point where I just spent so much money, and I was just like, yo, I'm going to fucking blow my brains out, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I can't do it. Like, this is what I want to do. So that's why, going back to what you said before about, like, this is therapeutic, the music thing. This is how it is for me when it comes to doing shows and even the networking and just conversations, man. Like, I had this kid Ben on a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking about like Pokemon cards and sports cards. And
Yeah, it was one of my favorite episodes you did, actually.
I appreciate that,
Yeah.
man. Thanks. I really enjoyed that too because I like interesting, bro. Like I like giving people interesting. I think I'm an interesting dude. I have some like weird interests and I have some like cool ones too. But
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated by conversation and storytelling. So that's my favorite thing about doing a podcast.
I also think you're kind of you're like me in that sense where you appreciate people for what they are and who they are. You don't ever try to sit there and conform people into your little box and your world because honestly, like I already know myself. I'm fucking way too much for a lot of people and I wouldn't want more than one of me. You know what I mean? So I love that there's people who are different than me. As much as me and you are similar, we're completely different people. And I love that fact because then you ever like talk to somebody on here and like something comes out of your mouth and you're like, wow, that's the first time I ever said that out loud. Like not even to myself. Like I've been thinking about it for months and months, but like that's the first time I ever said that.
Yo, the kid Ben was just talking to me, and he was just like, I'm 24 years old and I'm engaged, and I was just like, oh, that's what's up, man. And I was like, yo, don't be embarrassed about it. Like you're in love, He's like, yeah, I am. I was like, congrats on the sex.
Congrats on the sex, buddy. Good for you.
It all happened because on my Twitch stream, bro. This kid Daniel Gibson, he's a patron. Shout out to him. Thanks for the contributions. But he was like, "Yo, man, like COVID's been pretty tough on me and whatnot, but I just like had a newborn." And I was like, "Yo, congratulations!" And Nick, I don't even know why. I was just like, "Yo, congrats on the sex."
What do you mean? That's the first thing you should congratulate somebody on when you hear about their nuptials and their kids. Listen, unless you're like walking into it and knowing like, all right, it's a touchy subject. The first thing I hear about whenever I talk to my boys and they're like, yo, I got a new girlfriend. Every time I meet them for the first time, the girls, I'm like, yo, good for you for letting this kid touch you. I'm like, that's awesome. I go, yo, you didn't even have to do that. I know him. I go, you don't have to do that. That's so nice of you. And they always look at me like, bro, this is the first time I'm meeting you. And I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be the last either. So good try.
I rather like I have 3-4 friends that are like, yo, you were a dick back there.
Yeah.
No matter what the conversation was about or what the situation was about. And you need people like that.
It's super important. Super important. It's like I told you earlier, I've been dabbling in like doing life coaching and wellness coaching and all that stuff. So like I don't even look at it as like I'm coaching. I look at it as just like, listen, you need an accountability partner at some point, whether it's your weight, whether it's your mental health, whatever it is. You just need somebody to hold you accountable. Like when you're fucking up, you need somebody to tell you. And I'm not excluded to that. Like I need somebody to do that for me. So I always tell the people who I'm working with too, like I always say, like, listen, this is not like you listen to me and that's it, like my way or the highway. I go, I need you to hold me accountable because like I'm still in the process of doing all of this. This is still a huge adjustment to me, whether it's the weight or whether it's just my actual life, how I'm leading my life. It's a huge adjustment. And I'm trying to figure myself out as long as I'm okay with myself, which we talked about too, is that I'm comfortable with myself. And that's the most important thing to me is being comfortable with myself.
How long did it take for you to get to that point?
I'm gonna give you the cliche answer and be like, I'm still on the search for it. You know what I mean? And be like, listen, I'm still looking for it because there are times where I really do feel like I got it under control and then something stupid happens and I fucking snap and I'm like, geez, bro, like that got you mad? I'm like, that is holding weight in your brain and your heart. I go, that sucks, man. Like whether it's people not... Also, I think of it this way. You see how your life is operating right now. You feel like you have a sense of control in your life. For a very long time, I didn't have any control of anything, whether it was my weight or my life, my income, like my family life, my relationships with people. I didn't have any control of that. So when you finally get a handle on some things, it's very hard to let go of that control, whether it's a relationship you're building with somebody, a girl or a friend or a coworker, whatever it is. And it's really difficult, man. It's not the easiest thing to do. And you kind of sit there and you're like, well, I am who I am. And you can't let the outside noise bother you. Like for you, like this is your domicile, like this is where you want to be. And if anybody tells you anything, like that's just noise, man. You can't, you know what I mean? It can't derail you. Like you're not going to let it, at least, with your perseverance and your hard work. But you kind of figure that out along the way. And dude, like we're not old. Like, as much as we feel it in our knees sometimes when it gets cold, we are not old. We are young men. And like, we have a lot of life to live. So you kind of sit there and you go, wow, I have this to look forward to. Like, I have my 40s to look forward to. People are like, oh, your 40s, your 50s, whatever. Dude, I'm not even 30 yet. You know what I mean? I get my whole 30s to look forward to. I get a whole other 20, 30 years of my prime. I missed out on a couple years of my life because I wanted it that way. Like, I wanted to lose out on those years, but it actually taught me so much more, and it helped me bounce back even more.
When I got to my heaviest, I wasn't like depressed. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything more than just an alcoholic, I think.
Yep.
Bro, honestly, bro, I would go out, like me, Josh, Impy, Eric, and my buddy Dunbar would literally go to the same nightclub every Saturday night for, I think, like 25 straight weeks.
Nice.
Yo, I'm not exaggerating, bro.
Nice.
Comps, because we knew the dudes that ran it. We had tables. Then get hammered. And then from there, you go straight to the diner at 3 a.m.
Yep. Where you eat a bunch of fries with cheese.
Fries,
That's
cheese,
it,
bacon,
man. That's
cheeseburgers.
it, dude.
Oh, I need one of those.
What do you mean?
right
Those
now.
are the best meals ever.
Oh, yeah, dude. I'm a Western omelet is my go-to.
Listen, I'm still what's it called? Till this day, like, I'm always like a fatty when it comes to food, no matter what. Like, I love food. And the reason why I bust my ass, whether it's working out or, you know, making sure I'm under control, like I do my intermittent fasting just like you do. And the reason why I do it is because I enjoy food so much, man. Like, I love food so much. And I do it because I'm like, all right, well, I earned this shit. Like, yo, this is the sick mind of mine where if I lose 5 pounds, I chalk it up like I lost 3 because I'm like, bro, I'm going to eat my weight in like fucking ice cream, you know? like I kind of am like, all right, well, I got to treat myself to something and I don't want to restrict myself from anything. And it's just also having a relationship with food at that point. And dude, like, I don't drink. Like, this is the first drink I've had in a very long time. Like, I had one on my birthday with my friends and stuff, but I don't drink casually. Like, I don't go out. I don't do all that stuff. So this is all just sugar. Like, it's just all sugar. So like, when people are like, oh yeah, but drink it with cranberry juice, it's like, all right, well, that doesn't fucking work. Like, that doesn't work. It just makes you pee weird.
Yeah, you just try to find a reasonable out of some kind.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, you
Like,
try and justify for yourself
like
always.
gin and tonics. You're like, oh, you know, it's just tonic.
It's just tonic water.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, but good try. Nice.
Yo, are you allowed to talk about the stuff that you do with the editing stuff? Is that like?
Oh yeah. So
because it's really cool, and I was gonna edit this
Yeah,
out anyway,
yeah.
and you were gonna make me do an extra part of my job, which I hate doing.
yeah, absolutely.
I should have asked you this before.
No,
we started
no,
recording,
absolutely.
But I figured
So it's not
because
even.
it's really, I hate to cut you off, but it's like dope, man. It's really cool, and also
Yeah, it is.
You sort of now entered like the digital content
Yeah.
world, and you're doing a lot of what I'm doing too. So tell the people a little bit about the shit that you
So
do, man.
I actually, the funny thing is that like, the thing I do is I chop up videos for a podcast, and it's called the History Hyenas podcast. Don't mean to plug them, but like, I'm gonna plug them because they're really funny. Chris Stefano, Giannis Pappas.
Yo, Giannis is a dirty lamb. Just
He
like
is.
I am,
He
baby.
is such a dirty
Lambs
lamb,
up.
man.
Shouts
He's
to
such a
Giannis,
dirty
baby.
lamb,
Greeks
dude.
all day.
And he's the best, though. He's the best. But like, they're two funny guys, right? They run a pretty successful podcast where they genuinely do talk about history. Like, they talk about a lot of stuff that has happened in the world, not just America, but in the world. And they put a spin on it where you kind of sit there and you're like, wow, that's actually pretty. Everything seems so complex sometimes when it comes to history of things. So like, they make it very simple and they let you know to the point, like, what's going on. And they're a great podcast. One of my friends from childhood, actually, and he's still one of my closest friends, he's a producer on the podcast, and they don't technically, I've never met them. I don't know them. They don't know me. They don't even know that I do the clips, really, I'm pretty sure. But like, I take their episodes and I kind of make clips for them because like, I find stuff that I like and I think is funny, and I just clip them and I send them to my friend, and he puts them on YouTube. And it's one of the better things that I do, actually, because like, I get to just sit there and listen to a podcast in full. And not only do I listen to the podcast, I watch it, And I'm like sitting there laughing hysterically. And then when I find something funny, I just kind of like mark it off and I go, all right, this is pretty funny. Like, I think people will find it funny. And then like as time goes on, you kind of watch it on YouTube. You kind of watch what hits. You kind of watch what doesn't. You kind of see like the little algorithm that it works. But it's really cool, man. It's such a cool podcast and it's such a funny like path that I'm taking too, because like it's just it's like the opposite side of what I've been doing. I've always been with my music. I've always been the guy, you know what I mean? And between me and you, I'm not like a huge fan of that. Like it's probably my least favorite thing about making music.
You know what's funny, man? I used to be like growing up, I was always like the best athlete.
Yeah.
And like, I was a really good soccer player. I do this thing on the Patreon where I ask you what your biggest regret is in your life. Little cheap plug. But that's one of the questions. And like, for me, it's weird. Again, going back to the thing I said about the cops before, how the cops was like the worst thing that ever happened to me because I went down these like really dark places. But it also became the best thing because that jump started me into getting into shape and really caring about my body and my health while I have a cup of Jameson next to me.
Salute, though.
Salute, you know what I'm saying? But dude, my biggest regret was quitting soccer when I did. I quit soccer when I was 16 and I was like really fucking good, man. Like I was legit. Like I could have went and played like overseas. Like I was really, really good. I also played a position. Are you a soccer fan at all?
No, not really.
I played defensive midfield. So for like people that don't know, that's like it's like a ugly, not like you're not Ronaldo. You're not gonna score mad goals.
You're like the fighter in hockey, right?
Yeah, you're the grinder.
Yeah.
That's actually a good analogy. Like you clean shit up. You're like almost the last line of defense, kind of. And like I was really good on like corner kicks and free kicks. Like I was a set piece specialist. But anyway, I don't want to bore you with like soccer lingo, but I do think that life works in a really unique way because I stopped playing soccer because I fell in love with football. And now football is
your life,
what we're sitting in right now, right? And then like, the basketball stuff, MMA, soccer, like everything's now become into this one brand that I'm building. And you said the thing about like being front and center with your music. Like me, I always was front and center and I loved it. But then I kind of like got mad insecure because my teeth were foul. Like I had baby teeth, bro. I had baby teeth.
Yeah, you told me you had braces.
And then I had braces when I was 26. Like, son, that shit was mad awkward.
Yeah, definitely.
Trying to hit on chicks at the bar. And I'm
Absolutely.
just like, how's your day going?
They're like, oh, that's great. What high school are you in?
Yeah,
it's like, no, I'm a grown man. I pay a utility bill.
Yeah, I'm 27, actually. I know this is weird. I should have had these at 17, but, 10 years later. But now, like, one of the reasons why I went and I got braces when I did was because I saw that this was going to be like a career path of mine, and I really love doing it. I just knew that if I got that fixed, I could go back. Like, I always joke with my friends. I was like, yo, I was way more popping in high school. Yeah. Son. Like, I was the high school quarterback.
You peaked, bro.
You peaked. I peaked way too early, bro.
Yeah.
So trying to, pull back the time a little bit. But that's one of the reasons why I went and like got my braces, got in shape also, because I didn't want to be that guy that was like, yo, you were like the man back then. And like, now you're kind of like.
Isn't it funny though, actually, when you really like think about it in terms of time? High school, you were the man, you feel like you peaked. You were really like, you were the spotlight. And then like there's that lull of like 20 to 24, 25, where it's supposed to be the prime of your life physically. And like, you're also supposed to be going out, doing whatever, having fun, getting a job or, finishing college. And like, ironically, for a lot of people, myself included, it's like the weirdest time ever where you're like, I'm not a full-fledged adult because I live with my parents. I'm very insecure about my look. So I'm sitting there. I can't even hit on women the way I want to. Or like, I wish they knew my type of personality because like I would be more confident. But then you're like sitting there, you're like, dude, you don't even take care of yourself. Like your health is bad. Like you're kind of sitting there. You have high school tendencies, but you don't play the high school sports. So you're like, you kind of like, I was a high school athlete. Like, I mean, I say athlete very loosely, but I played baseball for 4 years and I wasn't in the best shape. I was always a bigger guy, but I was always in shape. Like, meaning I was always able to play a sport. Like I was never really heavy where I was like, buddy, you got to pull it back. but I always was the guy who played a sport. So I always was like, all right, well, I could eat whatever. I have practice later. And then all of a sudden, practice stops. Like you kind of stop. High school ends. You go into college. You start smoking pot. You start drinking more. You start partying. And your dieting doesn't stop like the way it is. Like your diet is shit. It's just a high school diet, but like in a college body. And then you're like, all of a sudden you wake up one day, sophomore year of college, and you're like, bro, I'm sweating trying to tie my shoes. Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And then like 23 comes and you're like, now your brain is so attentive to all these things. You're like, shit, like I'm so aware of all this. Like I'm so aware of my belly. I'm so aware of how fat my face looks after a night of drinking. Like I'm so aware of everything, where in high school you'd be like, all right, well, shit happens. I'll sleep it off. And like now you kind of are like, and then 25 hits, 26 hits, and you're like, okay, I'm not a kid. And I'm not an old man, but I'm also like 26. I lost my dad's medical insurance and I had to get on my own medical insurance. And I'm like, bro, like real life is hitting me hard, man. Like my dad looked at me. He goes, listen, I have medical insurance from the city. He goes, you have it too. He goes, you're turning 26 next week. He goes, you better get a fucking job that gives you medical insurance because you ain't got shit. And I'm like, damn, dude, it's like that. I'm like, that's what happens. And then you kind of realize you're like, yeah, that's the stage. Like, and also, I don't know if you do it, but like you have Greek grandparents. I have Italian grandparents, but they look at you like you're at the age of 25 and they're like, you're not married, you have no kids. They're like, you don't have a steady job. And I'm like, first of all, that's your problem, not mine. I'm figuring myself out. You do this whole like Zen thing and you're like, well, I'm doing me, like I'm learning myself. And they're like, yeah, learn yourself, but like earn a fucking paycheck, you lazy sack of shit. And it's like, all right, well, like now I'm 28 now and I'm not all the way there, but I'm kind of on my way to what I want to do, which is to me better than, like, not to be all cliche and shit, but it's better than a paycheck. Like I get to do what I want. And not only do I get to do what I want, but I'm responsible for myself. And I think that's where you're at too, in terms of like your health. Like this is the best I've ever seen you look in shape wise. You know what I mean? Like not saying you were never in shape, but like, this is like, you just look fit, it's different.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem.
You trying to make it out?
No, I mean, listen, we got a drink or two. You want to get a plate? You want to get some food? What are you down or?
Dude, I appreciate that because I do feel like now the whole thing, and you said about the paycheck thing, like it really, I think it gets to a point where you finally figure out what you're going to do and what you want to do. And again, it's like mad cliche.
Yeah.
And I think the coolest thing about it, and the one thing I really like, why I'm so open to my audience and why I'm so open like on social media about this shit that I go through, is because I'm so confident in myself because I know my work ethic. So I know that, yeah, it might take time. And we were talking about this before we started recording. We were just shooting this shit, watching football. Yo, I know when the blow up happens, it's going to be fucking a hurricane.
What do you mean? I'm trying to be part of it. That's why I'm glad you use my music.
That's a fact, though. But yeah,
absolutely.
I wanna, with the people that support me and show genuine love, not fake love, like real love, and they really care and they reach out when they're not supposed to, but they just do because that's in their nature. Like I take pride in things people take for granted.
Absolutely.
And again, this is all like therapy to me, bro. Like,
it is.
I really like. There's mad times where Alan's in the background right now where he's watching Red Zone, but there's times where like I don't want to record, but then I know Alan's coming in, and then Alan walks in, and then we just start like we'll talk about like what the show's gonna be about, and then before you know it's like, all right, bro, we're good. This is really exactly what I needed.
That's funny you say that, because this is how I look at it with, and I hate to bring it back to the whole diet thing, but this is how I look at it with eating. When I'm bored as hell, doing nothing, sitting in my room, like all you think about is like I need to be stimulated in some way, whether it's drugs, drinking, sex, food, whatever it is. And you try and find your vice. And then all of a sudden, like you meet up with a friend or you do a podcast like this, and like you don't think about it because like you're engaged, you're finally there, you're attentive, you where you want to be. And you don't have to sit there and like second guess yourself. Mm-hmm. And like, that's kind of where I'm at too. I actually had a question for you. And it's in regards to the podcast. I feel like you're in a safe place in terms of where you want to be and what you want to do, and I'm glad that you're there. Have you gotten to the point where you feel like your parents also understand what you're doing, or no? Yeah, because I'm not there yet, but I think it's also a battle. I think it's a battle completely with yourself where you kind of have to put that to the side and go, listen, they're a different generation of people. Like, they don't get the internet at all. Like, my grandfather still tells me to this day, he goes, Nick, I saved the New York Post for you. I go, Grandpa, I have the New York Post. I go, it's on my phone.
I got it before you did.
First of all, it's called Twitter. Second of all, like, I have the New York Post. It's on my phone. Like, I don't need a physical copy of it. Like, and like, you kind of sit there and they don't get it in a way. But also, like, is it their job to get it? Like, is it your dad's job to understand what podcasting is? No, because he busted his ass in a completely different way. So he'll only I feel like our parents and grandparents will only understand it when you become a success. Like, the grind to them is not like, oh, you're sitting in your room, like, talking in a microphone. Like, that's not grinding. That's not hustling. Meanwhile, it's like, yes, it is, because you don't understand who's hearing the other side of it. You know, like, you're part of a program now. You're part of a podcasting channel where you sit there and you're like, I got there because I was speaking into a microphone. You know what I mean? And like, it's weird. You kind of like, with my music and stuff, I got to perform down in Texas a couple years ago, and my parents didn't even understand what I was talking about music, because they were sitting there like, you want to rap? And like, I'm not even kidding, not even to make it a race thing. They were like, you're white. They were like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I like making music, whatever. And then all of a sudden I told them, listen, I'm going to Texas. I'm going to perform at South by Southwest. And they looked at me. They were like, what? They were like, somebody's going to pay you to go on stage? I said, yeah. I go, isn't that awesome? And like, they don't realize it until it's tangibly there for them, until they can touch it, you know? So I don't know how it is for you and your family, but like, I feel like this is a huge deal. This is a big deal.